Okay, great.
Okay. Yeah, well, I guess the first thing to do is just see if there are any questions that came out of last week. Did people try stuff, have problems with things, stuff we want to address? I know certainly Ellie messaged me and the link to the free pro version of QLab. Did that work? Is there an Ellie there? Not sure.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I haven't really tried it yet, but I've sent it to a couple of other people. So
Hopefully
who've asked for it as well. So I'm hoping it will, but I'll try it out soon.
Awesome. No, it should do, because as long as you use your Monash email address, then that should be all good, as far as I know. But I haven't tried it either. And Stacey, did you put that link in the Moodle?
I did, but I'll throw it back up. I'll send it out through an announcement so that people maybe find it a little bit easier, and I'll pop it on the Facebook as well.
Awesome. Great. Thank you very much. So were there problems or things that came up, or things that people had difficulty with, anything like that? You're all good? Okay.
Okay, yeah. Stacey, can you help with that?
Say that.
So it's about using up the free version of Isadora for the people who are on Windows before a final assessment is due, when they might actually need to use it.
Oh yeah. So is it a 30-day free? I can't remember the conditions now.
I think it was 30 days, yes.
I think they usually are, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I did ask Chris Cody to look into maybe a license for one of those. So I'll follow up with him today about that. So maybe, maybe hold off on downloading those just until I can get a firm answer about whether we'll be able to have access beyond the 30 days, if you will. But I'll do some investigating on that as well. It's not great. I'm sorry. It's not a great thing for PC users out there, but I'm mindful of the fact that we have PC users out there. So just trying to sort out the best option.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. So were there any specific questions in relation to building stuff that came up? Maybe not. I'm not sure. So is the best thing to do to sort of go on and try out our next exercise? Awesome. All right, let's do that. So there's another tutorial up there. And I will go sharing my screen, I guess. So I hope, just quickly, before I do, did anybody try out Isadora or anything, and did it translate? I wish I had a PC that I could try it on myself, but I've just never used it because I don't have a PC. Did anyone have any experiences?
I tried using some of the ones that were like completely free, but they had a very weird kind of wonky system that was a bit different to QLab. So I think the ones that have that like 30-day free trial or licenses are probably going to be better.
Yes.
More similar.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know certainly. To use GarageBand.
I've just said no.
Yes, thank you. GarageBand is great. Like we'll cover that a little bit in this tutorial. Well, not really, but what GarageBand is great for is preparing the files that go into QLab. And there are some great free programs there. Reaper or Audacity are two totally free ones. So they are specifically audio editing programs rather than playback programs. And the kind of difference, in the functionality of QLab as opposed to something like GarageBand is massive. So they call it linear and nonlinear editing. So GarageBand will sort of play from left to right, and there's not much you can do to alter time once you're playing something. Whereas with QLab, because you've got all those things, there's groups in different things that can be operated by spacebar as something happens on stage. That just gives you a huge amount of flexibility, which is fantastic. Cool. So should we go on?
Yeah.
To a new exercise? Yep. Okay. So there's this different link, Stephanie. There's it's actually on a Twitter. You sent me a Twitter page or something, Stacey. And what it is, so it's still the same thing, but what you can do is sign up with your Monash email, and they will give you access to the Pro bundle. Cool. So yeah, maybe just trying that out. I assume it should work. But yeah, I don't know if it doesn't just go straight through from that link. Maybe emailing them will work. Oh yeah, that's it. That's the one.
Yep. And Chris Cody sent that through to me with the note about the temporary pro licenses. So yeah, give me a shout if it doesn't work. But Chris sent that through to me. So try that one.
Yep. And they're actually, QLab are really good. They're very responsive. So if you email them, they will get back to you and solve any problems that you have. They're actually surprisingly good like that. But anyway, that's good. All right. So yeah, if there's no specific questions about what we did last week, I guess we'll just go on and go to the next one. All good? All right. So again, I apologize to the non-QLab people, but hopefully this stuff translates. Anyway, so I'll just share my screen. All right. So can we all see that? Yep. Cool. And so you should have a MIA Monash audio files folder. So I have set this this one up, and just let me check audio outputs. Yes, that's all right. So I've done a few things. I've already put my toolbox here and my little fast forwarding thing over here, and set my group to be start all children simultaneously. That's all in the last week's thing. Interestingly enough, I can't actually see questions now, which is.
I'll read them out.
So maybe. Great, thank you, Stacey. That's brilliant. All right, so if you open QLab and get your MIA Monash audio files, and then we've got MIA XXO Monash, and oh, it's going to behave. Drop it in. So this is an example of something that I've done in Logic, which is similar to GarageBand, but you know, it doesn't matter which editing program you use. They all practically work out the same. You can do whatever you want within them. So what I've done with this, because the idea of today is to do loops, devamps and effects. So what I've done is cut a section of this track that can be looped. And then basically I've just chopped a little bit out of the start, a little bit in the middle, and then the chorus. And so I've plonked those three sections together. And then what we're going to do within QLab is loop the middle bit so that we can just sit in that and then put in a trigger so we can go to the chorus when we want to. So with that, so with our track here, so I guess we can just hear that. So that's our first bit. And then going into the chorus like that. Can they hear that okay? Yep. And can you hear me talk over the top of it?
Yep.
Great. Awesome. So it may not be completely apparent from listening to that, but what the idea was is to loop that middle bit so it just sits around. So if you go to your time and loops tab down here, like us, you know, it's just a happy accident with this that it's at 120 beats per minute, which is nice because everything works in divisions of 1 second. So it's not always that neat, but that's right. So you've got a plus and minus here, which enables you to zoom in. For some reason it zooms in on the middle, but anyway, it's all right. And then you grab this little slidey thing, move it back. So in this case, we're just going to click around the 2 second mark. Let's click there. And then just get rid of, oh no, we've got to add a slice. And then we get this slice time. So you can just delete that 3 and add a 0. And then you have a slice that is exactly at 2 seconds. And you can move forward and go to 10 seconds, do the same thing. Click on there, add a slice, bring that to exactly 10 seconds. All right, so now if we zoom out, we've got these 3 sections. So this first bit's just a little intro. It has that 1 there, which just means that that is going to play once. And then we've got this section here, which at the moment is also playing once. So if you double click on that, delete that 1, and then push enter, you get the infinity symbol, which means that in between these 2 markers, this will loop indefinitely. So if we listen to that, and take it back to the start, there it is. It's going through. So it'll just keep doing that forever. Whoop, my internet is unstable. Can you still see that okay? Yep. All right, so in order to get around to the next bit, what we've got to do is add a devamp cue. So that's down here in your tools. So devamps, I'm not sure, like the idea of that, it comes out of musical theatre and opera and stuff when they have like pit bands and things like that playing away. And a vamp is essentially another name for a loop, but you'd have a section of written music which would just go indefinitely until a point in time where things were ready to happen on stage, and then they'd give you, the conductor would give you a cue to move forward into the next section. So that's why they call it a devamp cue. So if you just drop one of them in there, now it's the same as what we did last week with the fades, where you target it. So you click on the audio file and drop it over the top of the devamp cue. Now there's a whole bunch of settings down here. In terms of this, the moment we're just devamping it, and that will cause it to go beyond this section. So you can hit a devamp cue anywhere within the looping slice, and once you've hit it, it will then carry on past the next bit. So if we just try that, there it goes. Let it go through once. All right, so I'm going to hit the devamp cue. Now this will go through. So what that's good for is, yeah, sort of creating time within a show. So we had a good one, show Stephen and I did with, which was Abigail's Party, when we had a dance section. We had dialogue happening in between things, and so it worked out really well to have these sort of sections of the song that would just carry on indefinitely, and then when we got to the appropriate point, then the operator could hit that devamp, move into the next bit. So it's just a way of creating flexibility on stage. So yeah, that's sort of how that operates in a sort of basic sense. You can do it a whole bunch of different ways. This is looping one particular track. You can also, you can physically cut the track into different sections if you want, and you could have this as 3 cues. So this could be 1 cue, this could be a second audio file and a third one, and you could do that, program that slightly differently in here. But anyway, we'll sort of get back to that in a second. So with this one, what I was going to do is show you the effects as well. So the idea of that would be to, set up a situation where people can talk over the top. And it's not as intrusive because it's quite a big sort of track. So what we're going to do, applying effects is, again, just using the fade tool. Like I said last week, like the fades are really, fade cues can do a lot of different things other than just fading volume. They're very useful. But in this case, what we're going to do is fade an effect parameter. So first thing to do is to put an effect onto this. So if you go to your audio effects tab down here, add an effect. Apple, these will all be built in. With your PC users, you will be able to access free basic effects from various sources. I think if you install Audacity first, which is I'll put up a link to Audacity and Reaper, because they're free ones. GarageBand, if you have a Mac, you will have GarageBand on there that will have installed all these Apple effects for you. But if you install Audacity, that comes with a heap of effects as well. So your the show queue systems or whatever should be able to recognize them once you've installed them on your computer. Or there's a whole bunch of free things around that people just make for fun. So in this case, we're going to put a low pass filter on it. So here it is, low pass. And I'm not sure, some of you may not be familiar with these things. So just to talk about it, like high pass and low pass filters are great. Like, as the name suggests, they allow the low frequencies to pass. So as you bring this slider down to the bottom, you are cutting off all of these high frequencies. So all of these are cut off, and just these low frequencies will be coming through. So in this case, if we open it up all the way, so it's not doing anything. This is now not affecting this track at all, but it exists in there, which means we can fade it. So we can get rid of that. Grab a fade, put that in here. Same as we did last time, target the fade. But now when we go to it, we go audio effects. So now if you tick this audio effect, this fade is going to affect the low pass. Now if we edit that, we can bring this down. So just for the sake of this, if we listen to it, it's a good idea. So here it is. So just allowing that bass to come through and nothing else. So somewhere quite low is all right. So that's something that could just happen, and stuff can happen on stage, and then we can open it up, back up again for the chorus. So now, if we stop that, the same way as we did last week, if we set a parameter on that, so 4 seconds, it will fade over 4 seconds. And now, because I did this in the tutorial, I know that this is annoying. So the first part of the fade is not going to have much impact. It's just when it goes through the middle. So adjusting the curve shape is really good for that, because that will mean if we go like this, as it passes through those 4 seconds, it will go quickly through the first bit and then slowly through the interesting part of the fade and then finish. So what that sounds like now, if we get and then that allows us to kind of do stuff on stage. With that going in the background, then we can open it up again for the chorus. Is anybody having trouble with this? Is going too fast, doing anything? It's all okay?
No questions so far, Dan.
Great, awesome. All right, just jump in if you do. So the next thing to do is to open that fade back up when we devamp. So we can go into the chorus. So for that, we need a group. So I'm going to put the devamp inside. I copy and paste this fade. Drop that in. Adjust the parameters here. Bring this, open this filter right back up. In this case, it might be fun to do it over 2 seconds. And because we're moving the opposite way, I'm going to make this curve shape go in the opposite direction. So now, with queuing this, even though the devamp is can happen at any stage. We kind of want that fade to happen 2 seconds before we go in. So I'll just play that, but it's good. You need to get your operators to count in these situations, which is good. So anyway, we'll just try that. So here it goes. Fade it down. 3, 4. Oh. So anyway, that's just a basic way that these devamps and effects can work. It's cool. And now I'm going to put a sting on the end of this so we can finish it off. And so I can show you another way of using loops and devamps. So if we drop a group in here at the start, grab this MIA, put it inside the group. And if you go back to your audio files, you've got a thing called a silent loop. So if we drop that silent loop inside this, what you'll see here in the time and loops tab is there's no wave here. This is just a 1 second audio file of silence, which we can use as a clock. So this allows you to be much more accurate with your devamping. So in this first thing here, with this little looping section here, that's happening over 8 seconds. So you have an 8 seconds window of time, or up to 8 seconds from when you hit the cue to when something is going to happen. So that can be sort of too long in a lot of instances, which is why using something like this is really cool, because this is 1 second. So that gives you a 1 second window of opportunity, which is obviously much quicker. So with that, if we click on this infinite loop down here, this 1 second will just run over and over again forever. It's running at the same tempo as the MIA song. And yeah, this is built in Logic, and it's just one bar of silence from the project folder there. So, you know, if you're dealing with different BPMs, then this, you know, might not be as neat, but it doesn't really matter, because you still, if you hit it on the beat, it's gonna do what it needs to do. So in this case, we want it to devamp after it's gone to the chorus and put a sting there. So we need another group, like that in. Now, in this case, we're going to use a different type of group. So if you go to the mode, we want to start first child and enter into the group, which will mean that what we put inside this group, it will fire the first cue and then go to the next cue, which gives us that 1 second window of opportunity for the devamp to do its thing, and then we get our sting afterwards. So we need a new devamp cue, and this time we're going to devamp this loop of silence. I click on that, jump in there, click this, drop that down into this group. So that is going to devamp. Now, after it devamps, what we want to do is fire the sting and turn this track off. So we need another group. So this time we want to fire them all at once. If you put that group inside that first group, what you will get when this devamps, it will trigger everything inside this group. So if we go down here and get our sting, and drop that into this folder. So the sting is just, it's a cap at the end of the track, so it just goes. So it's a nice sort of sharp way to finish it. So the other thing we want to do is stop the playing track. So if we put a fade there, target the fades. I quite like doing it this way because it means you can drag it easily, and you can then Command X, Command V to move the fade to where you actually want it to go to. And this time we're going to do the same as last week, turn it right down, stop the target when we get to it, and make this very short. So if we put that at 0.5 seconds, that will happen nice and quickly. You do have things like a stop cue down here. That will effectively do the same thing, but personally, I just prefer a really fast fade as to a hard stop. Like there's times where a hard stop is really good, but it's very, very abrupt. It will just literally stop it instantly. So a quick fade is often just sounds a little bit nicer. So now if we go back to our devamp cue, we're going to devamp the currently looping slice. And in this case, we want to start the next cue when the target reaches the end of the current slice and stop the target when it reaches the end of the current slice. So that just means when we get, after we trigger this, it's going to go some period of slightly less than a second, fire this devamp, play this group, and stop this track, as long as I haven't done anything wrong. All right, so let's sort of go through that all quickly. If we go. And that's just a nice, neat little sequence. So does that make sense to everyone?
I think, Dan, I don't have questions about what you're doing, so I'm assuming that it does, but I do have a question from Bella. Can I ask that now?
Please, yes.
Bella says, not an urgent question, just curious. When you're using a low pass / high pass and you move into the theater, is it better to use the effects or audio level control to set levels for specific theater?
I think, I'm not quite sure if I completely understand the question, but fundamentally, and if I might just turn the screen sharing off, if I can.
Yeah.
Bill,
are you still here in case maybe you can?
Yeah. Hi.
Basically a combination of both. Hi. A combination of both is the best answer to that, I think. Basically, one of the really great things about QLab is the flexibility inside the space. So you're not kind of limited to anything that you've done in a rehearsal room. And in fact, you know, that bump-in process and sound plotting and dress rehearsals and teching and previews and all of that, like, a whole lot of stuff is going to change, which is where QLab is really great. High and low passing can be really good if you have sort of unwanted noise within your audio files that you may not have noticed in your rehearsal file. Like, you know, if you go into a venue with a great sound system and lots of subs and things, you might find that an audio file has this crazy low rumbling crap that you've never heard before because you've never had gigantic stacks of subs to hear it through. And so what you can do then, rather than having to address that outside of the program, you can grab a high pass, put that high pass filter on the offending audio file and just cut that bottom bit off a little bit so that it's not going into that super subsonic range where it's causing problems. And that is just a really quick fix rather than having to take it outside into a different program, edit it there, bring it back where you're guessing. Like being able to access those effects through QLab means that you can just do that in the theatre and get it sounding right in the area that you know, in the space that you're in. Same with low passing, you know, crappy high frequencies out of things. And obviously you've got EQs and things if there's specific frequencies that are sort of not sounding great in a room. You know, you can run general EQs across a whole system. If you sort of recognize that there's kind of standing waves or frequencies that are sticking out and causing problems within the space, you can run an EQ across the whole system. And it might actually be useful to look at that quickly, where you find that. So if I go back to my, where have you gone? There it is. If I share this screen again and go back, can you all see that now?
Yeah.
Yep, great. So if you go down into this settings bit, you're going to see this. So this is my sound card in my room. If you edit this patch 1, you now get all the different there's the Q outputs. There's your routing, so you can see, you know, it's this 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3. So these will become all your different speakers inside your theatre. So you might have left and right, surrounds, roof speakers, like that one that we saw, the plan that I showed you the other day. So you've got access to all of them over here in your device outputs. So you're now able to add effects here. So if you were to go here, that is applying an EQ to everything going through your output number 1. So, you know, generally for me, that's going to be your front of house left speaker. So you might copy the same 2 EQs to go on those left and right speakers. They're generally a pair. Same way you might run, you know, if you've got a sub in one of the other channels, you know, if you've got left, right, and a sub, you might want to do something, excuse me, like you can create a sort of imaginary crossover with this, where you just cut all the high frequencies out of your sub speaker, so you've just got sub going through the sub speaker. Yeah, so things like that can happen inside here. and then you've got the ability to add effects to individual cues as well. So actually that show that I showed you, the speaker plan for Truth's Merciless Gods in the Fairfax, that happens because we did that in Northcote and in Sydney, both, you know, on nice sound systems, particularly, well, actually they were both really good systems. But then when we got into the art centre, the whole thing just sounded like utter crap because it was just a big step up in the quality of the gear that they have in that room. And suddenly I was hearing frequencies that I'd never heard before. So I had to do a kind of panic session, just sitting there cleaning up every single audio file so it didn't sound like utter garbage, which was really, I found it really interesting because they were just a very, very nice sound system. Yeah, so I'm conscious of the time, Stacey.
Yeah.
Is there anything that's come up?
I don't see any other questions, Bill. I hope that helped and answered your question.
Yes, thank you. That was interesting.
Awesome.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan, for all of I've learned a lot. My brain's a little explodey right now. All of the resources that you provided. I did send through to everybody in the chat your email address. I hope that's okay.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Folks, if you want to experiment with sound for your INEs, please send an email to Dan. He's great about helping when you've got a specific thing you're trying to achieve and you've got something to work with. And he's generously offered to do that. Yeah, go ahead.
It's much easier to talk about when you're talking about specifics. But I don't know, making imaginary shows for no particular reason is useful, but specific questions are very welcome.
That's great, and thank you. And somebody asked if it was a requirement for the INE. No, it's not a requirement to use to do this stuff, but we will ask you to do that for the second performance composition 1, to try your hand at some sound and lighting design. We'll have lighting design tutorials after the Easter break. And we will get Dan back to work with you on those designs. But yeah, you might want to try something out, even in your experiments that you're uploading now, so that you can see what effect sound design might have on the work. So thank you, Dan, for today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Okay, I'm gonna